Welcome to Alignment First, where we're here to bring leaders back to their peace, presence, and power. And I've got the honor and the pleasure to sit with Ed Lubowicki, founder of Lubowicki Advisory, and who helps transition athletes beyond sport into the next season of their life. Dude, we had a really great jam session prior to getting on the mic today, and I know you're snowed in back east, but I really appreciate you making the time and sharing your wisdom today.
Well, Coach Durst, it's a pleasure. I love it. And the snow has since melted. I'm in Charlotte. So now
right on.
Stop. Now it's all just wetness. Yeah, everyone's freaking out down here.
Awesome, dude. So you transitioned from lacrosse at Notre Dame, spent some time in the corporate sector with Deloitte, and I'm not going to read your bio for you, but I'm interested. Where did you make the connection between the attributes that made you successful in sport and what made you successful in consulting that you've now married together in Lubowicki Advisory?
Yeah, it took way longer than it should have. I went into the corporate space knowing that I wanted to be a high performer, knowing that I was going to be able to work hard, be a good teammate, and those things just naturally went in the back of my head. But I didn't actually think about my unique experience, right? Like my sport, my position, the way I played my position. I never actually articulated that to myself and mapped out like everything that happened in my career as an athlete that I can use in the corporate space. Further than like the teamwork and dedication and stuff that we know every athlete has, like getting into the nitty gritty, I probably didn't really start thinking about that till 6 years after leaving sport, and haven't gotten good at really thinking about it till now, which is 10 years after sport. I retired 10 years ago. So It's been a long time. It's been fun. And it came with a lot of reflection, a lot of tears, and a lot of conversations about it. So still working. I don't think I'm like at some perfect state. Like I think it's a continual process that I'll be working on the rest of my life. But yeah, it's been fun.
Dude, I can't help but look at the banner behind you. And I know I had you sit center mass, for the sake of this conversation. But what does it mean to you? Because I feel, as I've experienced, Ed, that what sits behind you, do good recklessly, 100% embodies your essence. What's that all about?
I love it. And since I put it up, so many people comment on it, and so many people have different definitions for themselves, and it'll list different things for themselves. So I'm going to put it on you first. And then, because I have something that I prepared, but like your knee jerk, what is that for you?
Dude, for me, it really speaks to the practice of these conversations that I have on this podcast. And I'm amidst, I am mid-stroke in this brand upgrade. And if you go to my social, you can see the seasons of the show just based on the cover art, right? And what screams out at me in terms of do good recklessly is that in the spirit of getting this conversation around aligned leadership out to my audience and beyond, it's an imperfect iterative process, but it's with the best of intentions, and it comes from a deep, heartfelt place in me that I'm compelled to deliver that and communicate that message through these conversations. And if I'm judging myself, I can go all the way back to the first iteration of podcasting. Oh my God, almost 10 years ago now. And just like make that, and at the same time, you got to get through all that to get here. You know what I mean? So that's my long-winded answer as to what do good recklessly means to Michael.
See, like hundreds of people have talked to me about this. I never got that exact answer. It's incredible that it's like 3 words that elicit such different response. I think it's powerful in that way. And A lot of things I see similarly. I'm early in my podcasting phase of life, so I'm probably going to look at this in a few years and have that same reaction. But for me, like, it really just means doing what you know is right regardless, right? You can always create excuses to not do something. You could always think if you're motivated or not. But if you're disciplined enough to really reflect on what you really think is good, right? What is right in this situation, and do it right now, whatever happens is gonna turn out to be good for you. So that's how I interpret it. Like I'm an avid Stoic follower. I read the Daily Stoic every day. So controlling what you can control and kind of trusting that the plan is going to work out. So
yeah, dude, it's so funny you bring up the Daily Stoic. That was my inspiration for the Daily Durs.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
You know, I spent a whole year, literally 365 days, and a 366th to compensate for leap years, depending on when somebody comes into that mailer. And I didn't have the intention of it becoming the Daily Durs. I just felt it would be a great practice for me to sit intentionally with my thoughts first thing in the morning. And I committed, you know, I told you, you know, when we talked before and you were talking about getting into podcasting and whatnot, I told you commit to 100 episodes, and it doesn't matter what they look like, right? Just get to 100. And over the course, you're going to find your voice, you're going to find what you actually care about talking about, you know, and all of those things will come to the surface. But one thing I can guarantee is they don't show up in the first episode, right? Despite how devout you are about what you want to talk about, right? And I literally challenged myself to sit with my thoughts, regardless of how long it took for it to come out of my brain and through the pen. And that's what I ended up just sharing with the world through the Daily Durs. And what's interesting about that commitment, and it's really simple, and yet you can create, to your point, a lot of excuses why not to do it. There's 1, 2, 3. There's like 20 days of that were put out there while I was on my way up Mount Kilimanjaro.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But it was so important to me that I made sure that, you know, and I'm not a planner. Ask anybody who knows me, that is not in my DNA. But it was that important to me that I had to create some systems and line some things up so that never a day was missed. What's showing up for you as I tell you this story?
I think I love it. I love it so much. And I think that consistency every day, like this is where I hold my Daily Stoic, my everyday Tao, and my Bible reading every day. So I try to make it special, try to make it a ritual. So I love how you came at it in a different way. While up Kilimanjaro is hitting me especially hard because not only is it really impressive, but like the experiential nature of it, I think is so impactful, where if you're able to do something hard, get through it, and reflect on what you learned along the way, like it gets ingrained in your blood, right?
Yeah.
Watching a video or reading a PowerPoint deck about resiliency doesn't teach you resiliency.
No.
Climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, falling 100 times, not feeling your toes, all that went into it. That elicits real breakthrough moments.
Yeah. There's a distinguishable difference between being resilient and knowing resiliency. Right. There's a practice, and it is 100% born of stoicism. We call it, in the way we coach at Next Level, intentional adversity. What's the thing that you're doing on purpose to stress the system in a good way and force it to become more resilient. You know, it's like how you temper steel. You know what I mean? You got to beat on it, you know. And the human body, you know, we both come from athletics and human performance, and you know, the human body is such a useful metaphor for that practice. But that also shows up in how we challenge ourselves in life beyond sport. You know what I mean? In the things we volunteer for, the promotions we go after, the KPIs we chase, you know, the things, really and truly, it's you know, answering that call to stretch yourself. And, you know, I think that, you know, in reading your bio, that really sticks out to me, because there's a lot of people that get to the big four, Deloitte being one of them, and then fucking coast, you know. And I know cats at Deloitte, and that's 100% what they're doing. You know, it's really easy to disappear into that big corporate machine, and you chose differently. And I'm curious, you know, is that because of a byproduct of coming out of Notre Dame, the way that's a byproduct of, you know, coming out of the Marine Corps? Like, where does that pursuit of intentional adversity, volunteering for hard things, where's that come from for you?
Yeah, I think it's a mix. And before we go too far, I wouldn't say getting to that partner level of Deloitte is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to have some pretty thick skin and understanding of discomfort to get that far.
Yeah. But would you also agree, and this is what I found, when you get into those rooms, right? At every level, you know, getting into the Air Force Academy, becoming an officer of Marines, you know, on the outside looking in, it's like, oh yeah, you're in tall cotton. You're cut from a different cloth, you know. But when you're in the room at that level, at any level, right? There's the bottom 20%, right? You can find slapdicks at any level, you know. So to achieve a status and be recognized, to get that invitation into that room, to become a partner, would you agree that there are peers that you worked with that got there and just started coasting?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are. Yeah, I'm sure there are. I would say, though, that story we tell ourselves about what partner means is important.
Yeah.
Like, I think that in and of itself is important. If you get to the partner level, you had gone through some pretty intensive work, right? Like, you specialized in something, you were good at building relationships, you knew how to sell yourself enough to get to that level. Right. Whether you worked your way up through the company or were an external hire into that level, having that level of success means something to everybody else.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that that's really powerful. What you do with that title or what you do with that story is different.
Here
right?
you go.
Like, you can coast, or you can use it and use it productively and change economies, right? Change markets, change companies. But that's not always the case. And I think that's really interesting part about culture in the Big Four, where everyone knows it's hard to get there. Yeah. There is like a hierarchy to get there, but that story is baked into the culture of everything you do.
Sure.
Getting to that point. So I don't know if I have like a direct response to like if there were or aren't people that coast at the level. Everybody I worked with at Deloitte was pretty extremely intelligent and I know worked really hard. But yeah, I'm sure there are cases like that.
Yeah, it's relative, right? When we're all, I'll use the military as an example. You know, we'll use sport. You know what I mean? Now we're all at Notre Dame. We're all in this locker room, you know, and coming into that collegiate experience, it was fascinating because for some of us, it was, I had to bust my ass. Just the story, right? I had to bust my ass. I had to earn everything to get here. And then the other end of the spectrum is taking that being in that room for granted because you had talent, because you had connections, because you feel like you're supposed to be there, right? But then you step out to practice on that first day and you discover what's true, right? For some of us, the expectation was like, well, fuck, I already came in here a worker, and I know that's like the expectation for myself. I just know that I'm going to have to put in that work. And for others, what's also interesting is they're like, oh shit, I have to work for the first time. What got me here won't keep me here. And I'm curious, and as you put together this thesis that I can't wait to read, how does that dynamic of story play into everything that you're compiling right now?
It's everything, right? So what I'm mainly doing is narrative-based coaching, right? So not only seeing the story that you're telling yourself, but being able to separate from it and evaluate it from a 10,000-foot view, which is extremely hard to do, especially when it's not working, right? The person that is the worker and is putting in extra hours, when you get to that next level or you get to the pro level and everybody is putting in those hours, right? And you have Kobe Bryant showing up 15 hours before practice, like that happens for everybody. You need to be able to evaluate your story and adjust it and see if it's serving you and seeing if there's another thing you can do to get to that success. And the coolest part about sport for me and evaluating your experience from sport is that it's like infinitely unique in how everybody gets to success, right? Depending on your sport, depending on your position, depending on how you play the position, it could be a million different things. I've talked with 411 people about their experience in sport and what strengths they learned and what they apply afterwards. Never once has it been the same exact answer. There's been like flavors and buckets, but never once has it been like word for word exactly the same answer.
Right.
And I don't think many athletes actually evaluate those nitty-gritty details about why they're good or why they like the sport or what foundational elements are unique to them, right? Further than the technical things of like how you shoot a ball or throw a ball or make a tackle or whatever. Like I don't think many people do that. And definitely not many people do that in the corporate environment as well. So what I'm trying to do is bridge that gap using sport as this big personality assessment almost about how you operate in times of stress and times of success when you get knocked down and what stories helped you get through that and if those stories apply to other things in your life.
What does it look like in your research so far when the story that facilitated success no longer works?
I think it's extremely disorienting, obviously, right? And I think even your definition of works is disorienting for athletes because the way you get evaluated is wins and losses, an outcome, right? Not necessarily the process of what you learned. Right. If you have the best culture and you love your teammates and everything's great, and you lose, you go 0-15. Like you feel terrible still,
right?
Like so that's how you evaluate everything. And if you reach that like quote unquote failure of outcomes in the corporate sense, it's equally as disorienting. So I'd say like the first thing in that piece is like really defining what results you're trying to get and what you're learning by in anything you do, right? And what success means and what your expectations are. I think that's like a first step in that equation.
And in your work so far, what are some of the components that help someone successfully shift, or as we would say, update and upgrade that narrative to come back to a place of service and create momentum again where it was once stagnant.
Yeah. I mean, you said something earlier about like putting pen to paper and just writing it down. I think that's like a really impactful exercise to just like outline a timeline of what's been going on, right? And your highs and lows and times that really sucked and times that were great, and evaluating why you assigned that judgment to those experiences.
Okay.
So like thinking about your story and why you're telling it, if you write a timeline out on paper, it immediately externalizes it and makes you feel like it's not the only thing you could think about and this is who I am, right? You're able to separate it a lot easier.
Now in that dude, I love this. So there's a workshop that we take leaders through that is a timeline exercise that is designed to not only externalize, but to assess trajectory. Because when you're in the moment, whether it's the valley or the mountaintop, in the moment, it's really hard it's almost like day trading your life. You only have the moment to go by. You know what I mean? And, if we go back far enough and that's our starting line and the present moment is the proverbial finish line, we can then, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but you can go year by year and you create this chart. Okay. And you draw a line despite all the highs and lows from the beginning to the end, and you get a positive or negative slope. And this is really important if you feel like you're in a valley, right? And it makes you appreciate the mountaintop, because we miss both those things quite often when we're in the moment, and gain a perspective that at one point was being missed, and if nothing else, it creates a shift in mindset that encourages you to keep going, to either climb higher or recognize like, oh, I've been here before and I've overcome that. Here we go. You know what I mean? And as you're describing it, I'm curious, what's more valuable as it pertains to the 411 people that you've talked to? Is it the moment to moment assessment, or is it more empowering, more impactful to look at it from a perspective of trajectory over a long term?
Well, I'd say it's a lot easier to do in retrospect, right? Your experience climbing Kilimanjaro doesn't suck as much now sitting in your feet in your office, right? It doesn't suck as much now as when you were when you saw the peak or you're doing your last ascent or whatever.
Yeah.
When they were in it, that really sucked.
Right.
When you get punched in the face, it hurts a lot more getting punched in the face than seeing somebody else get punched in the face or seeing a video of you getting punched in the face. So I think it's a lot easier to do in retrospect. And practicing in the moment takes a lot of practice. I have this tattoo, like it's a little like circle thing. You can't really even see it, but it's the symbol of Kairos. It's like this old Greek definition of time. So they had a few words for time. Chronos was like 1, 2, 3, 4, like normal type thing. Numerical. And Kairos was evaluating time in terms of moments, right? Especially the moments that you feel like drawn to, or like a magnetic pull to, or feels like if I don't act right now, I'm going to miss something big.
Like a milestone.
Yeah. Or like these moments that you're talking about that people probably plotted up and down that were really great or really bad. They were just like defining things that like really felt impactful to them. So that's how I've kind of been evaluating these things. And it's been interesting thinking about these moments in terms of sports, because like every athletes know by the time game time comes around, you've already prepared enough, right? Like that moment is based on the thousands of hours of practice you put in, all the sacrifice you put in, right? So it's so funny that we evaluate our life in terms of these moments and kind of forget all the other stuff that we did, right? Like we only care about the win or whatever the goal that we did, but we don't actually think about all the things it took to take to get there. So I love that exercise and seeing the trend, because the trend is like actually respecting the process that it took to get to the moment, right? Like it actually makes you write something down about the process and what it took to get to that great point, or all the things that you were doing, and then it got to that negative point. So I think that's really impactful.
So Kairos, I want to spend some time here, because as the Stoics would present it in a lot of different ways, the message is still the same: falling in love with the process, right? And yet the real world, quote unquote, in terms of expectations, in the way that it's presented and communicated anyway, doesn't really give a shit about the process. It's all about results, right? Going back to something you said earlier, you're judged on your wins and losses. Nobody cares about your culture or the practice schedule or the itinerary, but all of those things are involved in those outcomes. So whose responsibility is that focus? If you're judged on outcomes, but those outcomes are so weighted by process, whose responsibility is it?
I don't know if this is going to exactly answer the question, but going back to sports, right? So much of wins and losses are circumstantial and dependent on like luck almost, right? And I hesitated with luck, but so many times in a game, a ball bounces a certain direction, and obviously, no matter how much you prepared, you're not going to affect how that ball bounced. A football bounces like sporadically, like crazy. Or you hit a pipe, or it rains that day, or all these external circumstances that you can't actually control. And so that's why I think like separating from that whole piece makes so much more sense to me, because the only things you can control is the things before the ball bounces, right? Like holding the football whatever certain way. I'm not a football player, so I don't know exactly.
You can speak lax. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. Whatever. Protecting your stick kind of thing, so you don't get back checked. Like those things you can control, but the way it actually plays out is so circumstantial. So to answer your question, who actually is responsible for the wins and losses? It's like God or the universe or luck or whatever, whatever you believe in, however the plan is going. And going back to stoicism, that's why I think it's so much more impactful thinking about what you can control, because that external outcome is up to whatever bigger plan is out there, kind of thing.
So is what's showing up in your research in terms of what has the greatest value in terms of how we craft the story, how we tell the story, how we buy into the story? Where's the greatest utility? Is it, I did everything that I could and it went one way or the other? Or is it retrospective, and here are all the things that I'll improve so that either the outcome is better or I avoid a negative outcome altogether?
Yeah, I don't know if there's one right answer. I think it goes back to this sign behind me, like whatever you can do in this moment that you think is good and right, and trusting that in the big picture that will matter. I think what's easier in sports to conceptualize is this higher purpose, future looking thing. Like, I'm going to sacrifice my Friday night to hit the wall and practice my stick skills a little bit more, or whatever the example is, because it's going to help me win a national championship. A national championship is so much easier to conceptualize than becoming a holistic person or becoming an executive or having a certain mission. Like those things are a lot more abstract, right? And not physical, and not Kilimanjaro's peak.
Right.
Going back to your example, Kilimanjaro's peak is so obvious when you're training. When you're training, I'm going to get to Kilimanjaro's peak. So obvious. So these stories and these abstract concepts of like higher purpose are a lot harder to define, and takes a lifetime to define. Right.
Sure.
So I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, if you're able to do these things moment by moment and believe you're building this character within yourself based on what you know is right, then it goes towards this higher purpose, and you're able to define that higher purpose a lot cleaner and a lot more detailed in a way that comes up for you. So it's not a motivation discussion. It's like an objective thought. Like, I'm going to do this because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Is there a pattern in your research? Dude, I can't wait to read the outcomes of this thing, and I know you're in the thick of it right now, but is there a pattern that you're seeing in which your athletic performance compared to what stands ahead of you in the corporate sector is leveraged as proof? If I can do, to put it simply, if I can do that, go through 2-a-days, win a championship, come back from injury, if I can successfully transcend that experience, those experiences, what stands before me is so not that, I might as well take that next easiest step. Is that a common narrative in the story? Is that a narrative? Is that a common through line in the 411 stories that you've heard so far?
Yeah. Before I answer it, it sounds a lot like Misogi's. Like you know about Misogi's, right?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's like the way I interpret it is like this ancient Japanese samurai decided to conquer something that he or she thought that they had 50% chance of surviving, right? And 50% chance of dying. So willingly going and doing that experience, even though there's a good percentage chance that you're going to die. And once you get through that and reflect on how you didn't die, you feel like you can do anything, right? Because if you got through this 50-50 shot, flip of the coin shot, and you persevere through this, you can do anything. So I don't know if you like that language or you have a different definition.
No, dude, I love it. Keep going, man.
No, I do think that is the case. And I do think athletes have this intrinsic quality that they can conquer the world, right? Like put them in any role, they're going to figure out how to do it. I'd say like actually in my conversations, it's really been the opposite. Like I feel like most people have discounted their experience as an athlete and tried to forget about it.
Here we go. Tell me more.
And this isn't always the case, but like this definitely happened for me. Like when I started my career at Deloitte, I tried to not talk about my experience as a lacrosse player. A lot of people didn't even know I played lacrosse when I was at Deloitte. And I tried to like recreate a new narrative for myself that I was like this cyber security specialist. So I think a lot of people struggle with that. And there's a common narrative, here we go, that you live a second life after your athletic life. Like the thesis I'm writing, I'm calling it Athletes Die Twice. Have you ever heard anybody say that?
Well, I've experienced the death of identity twice in leaving sport and then leaving the military. So like, sure. I resonate very, very heavily for what you're talking about. But go ahead. What does it mean for an athlete to die twice?
Yeah. So I first came across it in Roger Federer's documentary. It's like and he has a biography about him called The Last Days of Roger Federer. And his agent said something like that in passing, like it was like a common thing. Like, yeah, don't you know, like athletes die twice, their first life as an athlete, their second life as a non-athlete. Mm-hmm. And it honestly pissed me off. Like hearing it, I was like, Roger Federer is alive. He is not dead. And not only is he not, he's a billionaire. Like he has been so successful in on the court, off the court, whatever, like as one person that's only going to die once. Like we all die once. Memento mori, like everyone, remember you're going to die. Mm-hmm. So it was just like, it really like aggravated me that was like such a common narrative. And in these 411 conversations and a lot of the stuff I've been posting, so many people resonate with it. And you resonated with it twice from military and sport. Mm-hmm. And it just like hit me really hard that something as final as death can be associated with your experience in sports. And there's nobody really helping pull you out of it. Right. Like, you just move on. Yeah. You know, like, yeah. So tell me about, your experience.
No, dude, I can feel your activation in describing that because I don't know what the activation is in response to. Is it in response to, I disagree with that narrative, or is it that sad that it triggers that response from you? The reality of it is that sad. Which is it? Do you vehemently disagree that's eliciting that response from you? Or is it the acceptance of the objective reality that that's actually true?
I think it's the acceptance that it's true and it happened to me and it sucked. And things happened in my life that I didn't make peace with because of it. Right? Like if I was able to actually use my experience as an athlete in the through line or like the trend, like you were saying, in my experience at Deloitte in a more intentional way, maybe I wouldn't have got pushed around by a boss. Mm-hmm. Maybe I would have known that I have this deeper interest in bringing other people up instead of just grinding in an Excel and PowerPoint that I didn't care about. Right. Like if I actually thought about the reason I got to where I did at sports is because I love being a good teammate. Maybe I would have chose a different career. Maybe I wouldn't have gone into cybersecurity. So it elicited that response, I think, because I had lived that for 10 years of my life, knowing that I hadn't enjoyed my life or the content of my work at Deloitte as much as I probably could have.
Was it like a smack in the face? Like you read this biography and you're like, oh, fuck, that's me? Or... yeah. Oh, okay. Like, yeah. So you were kind of, what's the word? Unconsciously incompetent with regards to the reality of your existence.
Yeah.
Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah. No, unconsciously.
Oh man. Sure. So yeah, what is it to experience that awakening?
It was actually kind of validating because, and a lot of people I've talked to, have experienced this as well, where you think you're the first person to have these feelings. You think you're the first person to ever go through this, and you think you have to do it by yourself. Like, I'm an athlete. I got to this level because of the hard work, because I was able to figure things out. I'm going to do that on my own too. Like, why wouldn't I be able to do that? I'm the exception. So it was validating hearing somebody else's story in a very deep, vulnerable way. Like he broke down in the documentary, he started crying. I just saw another video of Matt Ryan, the former Falcons quarterback, saying how his experience was just as difficult, and he's a successful broadcaster, you know, like he has a pretty successful career, and he experienced that as well. And all 411 people I talked to all had a sense of that experience in different ways, and all tried to figure it out on their own. At the same time.
Dude, you're reminding me of when, you know, amidst the evolution of our practice and coaching at Next Level, I can remember talking with, you know, just because you like attracts like, and you try to swim in familiar waters, right? So in, you know, dipping in that veteran pool, dipping in that athlete pool, And real quick, I'd be remiss. I should have done this in the intro. Shout out to Christian Ponder and the Post, because the whole reason that you and I know each other is because of that group. And what I'm curious, it's obviously a community that is ripe with, to go from 411 to an exponential number for these conversations in your research. But going as, we're navigating these waters and seeing, what's the best means with which we can help these folks find alignment. And coming into this practice of aligned leadership, we found this narrative in the veteran community. The transition to the civilian sector was very much, this superhuman. My 50% is most people's 100. And then the athlete community was very much, I'm awesome all by myself. You look at all the things that I've done. And it was really interesting seeing that dynamic and that narrative manifest, especially in folks that came from team sports. And the conversation that sticks out to me, and we ended up working with him for 8 months. I remember the initial conversation I had with him. He was a football player at the Air Force Academy who was at the tail end of his career on active duty and in danger of missing promotion because he wasn't physically fit. So he's having an identity crisis because at one point you were so motivated, like the story he had in his head, that, I don't know why I can't get in shape. I've been in shape my whole life. How did this happen? Right? This, like, I woke up and I'm like fat kind of thing. And it was interesting in that conversation when I reminded him about his journey through high school, through the academy, and then active duty, and the components that are present at every stage along the way, in which there's a system that you operate within. There's somebody and a team that's holding you accountable. There's a mission bigger than yourself, right? And all of a sudden, like, you could just feel the energy over the phone, just kind of like strip that identity and I come to this new level of awareness of how bullshit that narrative was, and that it no longer works. You are now you live in a reality in which that story doesn't work. And to your point, like that's very, Dilt's model of identity change. The foundation of the model is environment and relationships. Okay. And we can have this aspirational identity. This is who Michael is becoming. This is who Ed desires to be. And yet what's the foundation of that bridge is the rooms that you stand in and the people you surround yourself with. And if you're unwilling to manipulate those two variables, the likelihood, I don't care what your beliefs are, what your values are, or, how superhuman you're trying to become while you stand here in front of me as Clark Kent. If you don't change those two things, the likelihood of you becoming Superman is exponentially lower. And with that, bringing that to the surface for him and our clients now, it's like, oh, you're right. Like it's admitting and accepting for self, to your point, the falsehood of that narrative. You didn't just get here by yourself. And despite all the friction you're experiencing in this moment, you need support. And as I describe that to you, how does that agree with or dismiss what's showing up in your research?
Yeah. Well, one thing that's coming up for me, especially for team sports and this amount of support that you get, is that you don't really choose that. You're given 50 best friends. You're given a coach that cares about you. You're given a trainer, sports psychologist, a nutritionist. All that stuff is handed to you. Right? Like you have this incredible support system around you trying to get you to be good at what you're doing.
Yep.
And then in every other part of the universe, you don't get that, and you have to choose. You have to choose which direction you go. You have to choose what support systems you leverage, right? Because you're not given it in that explicit sense, right?
Sure.
And I think that's debilitating. I think that's a really hard thing to start doing, evaluating those choices, evaluating your best partner. Like there's crazy divorce rates for former athletes because of, I think, this issue. It's because I think it's really hard to make that right decision, the most important decision in your life, who you marry, right? So I think that's really hard to do. And I think coupling that with athletes' thought process is there's always more. There's always something better. There's always another national championship. There's always a faster shot, whatever. Like coupling those two things, I think, make using those support systems really difficult in the real world, right? I know.
Well, no, that's really interesting, and it's something that I overlooked in that story. To your point, it's provided for you. And all of a sudden you find yourself post sport and you got to create or attempt to recreate this thing that had just been operating in the periphery, this scaffolding that supported your greatness, that was just part of the equation. And now you're in uncharted territory and you have to recollect, if you even have this level of awareness to begin with, like, oh, wait, what were the pieces that I need to now like collect for myself to stay in that story of greatness? Oh, wait, I wasn't paying attention. And more importantly, nobody told me to. Going back to the whole, it was all given to you part. And, it's almost counterintuitive as I'm saying that out loud, because I know you've heard it said, like it's the Achilles heel of any athlete to start developing a backup plan. Like if you start thinking about life after sport, how present are you for the sport you're playing? Right. It's something we don't want to think about and or talk about. And still, what I think would serve, and I'm curious what lands for you, if we as coaches and people of influence of these athletes, as they're in the playing season of their lives, we say, hey, pay attention to these things. So it's not so intrinsic, but there's also the objective extrinsic components, that scaffolding that supports your intrinsic greatness, your work ethic and timeliness and all of those things, your mindset. Pay attention to those components too, because you're going to need that when it's done.
Yeah. I think a good example of this that's kind of brings this apparent for me, and something that I still struggle with, is going to the doctor.
Okay.
I am very bad about going to the doctor. Like every time I go, they say you're fine, go home, and I pay a $60 fee or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
And anytime I was competing, you only went to the doctor when it was bad and when it meant there was a chance you weren't going to play. So I have this background thought that doctor equals not play kind of thing. And
failure to perform.
Yeah, right. And labeling that, I had that thought process, ideally could help me figure out how to incorporate it more into my life. Like, that's not the case anymore. The doctor's just trying to help me now. It's not going to restrict me from playing. And to your point about plan A, plan B, that's been a big part of my research, where it becomes this or that conversation. Like, I'm going to compete, or I'm going to think about myself as a holistic person in next life and retirement and all those curse words that athletes don't want to hear. Right. So I think like having a bigger plan A instead of this option B is how you can kind of associate yourself with this. I just read this book, Option B, by Adam Grant, this other individual that went through death of her husband. And as I was reading it, I kept on going back to the title, Option B. I was like, no athlete is going to pick this book up. No athlete is going to accept that there's a plan B, because I'm going to make plan A work. No matter what I need to do, I'm going to make plan A work. But there's some really great details in the book about post-disruptive growth, about how to orient yourself after something traumatic happens to you, or after a transition, that all these athletes are going to miss out on because they had this association with option B. So the change of the language that I'm trying to do is, this isn't option A or B. This is just a bigger option A, where sport is part of this broader plan. It's a stepping stone to something even bigger than sport. It's not this or that, this before that. It's something that's connected.
You need to talk to my buddy, Logan Gilbrick. He's going to be on, I've got him slotted. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to jam on the podcast in a couple of weeks. He's a University of San Diego baseball player, gym owner out in Venice. And he's got a leadership school called Hold the Standard. Shout out, Logan. And he introduced me to a concept called transcend and include. Are you familiar? I think it really speaks to the essence, maybe not directly, but or synonymously anyway, with that bigger plan A, where I get to take all the best parts of me as an athlete and include those components in my new identity in the corporate sector, or in entrepreneurship, or going back to school, or becoming a father or a husband. I got to take the best parts of that experience that is no longer and carry them with me into the new thing. In essence, is that what your bigger plan A describes? This process of transcend and include?
Yeah, I really like that language, and I think that's really interesting. One thing I would follow up with that, that I think is also important, is looking at the not so great parts that you learn, right? Like this doctor example, that's not the best part of my experience. That's a negative thing that's come out of it. Or my blind faith in leaders that I learned because I always thought my coach was out for the best of me, right? Not always the case in the real world. There's some negative actors out there that care more about their success than my success, which is fine, right? Like, that's fine. Yeah. But just knowing that's how I operate is equally as helpful as knowing the best parts about my experience, and the discipline and the conscientiousness and those things that I learned because of my experience as an athlete. So I think that's cool, though. Yeah.
I love the fact, man, that you're in the thick of compiling all of this data, and at the same time you're so honest with the inciting incident being your own lived experience. How do you reconcile that in real time? Is there any semblance of imposter syndrome, or who am I to put forth this research when I'm moving through it concurrently? Like, what's your narrative right now?
Yeah, to be honest, when you were saying I can't wait to read your thesis, I started sweating a little bit.
But I'm a nerd, dude. I'm gonna read it.
You're gonna read it and you're gonna rip it apart,
bro.
No, definitely feel with the imposter syndrome, but I think that's more than anything good because it means that I'm actually doing something, right? Like 3 years ago, I wouldn't have had anything to talk about with you. Like I wouldn't have really known what to even bring up on any podcast, right? So the fact that I'm getting enough interest to get on Coach Durs's podcast, like feels pretty good that I'm out there in the world, you know? And I had a mentor, you said thick of it. I had a mentor talk to me about like my research and me sweating and all these things. And she said, I'm jealous you're in the thick of it. I was like, how can you be jealous? Like I'm grinding. I don't know how to make money. I'm doing all this research, like late nights, whatever. And she was like, you're making so many breakthroughs that you would have never thought about if you were just in the cruising phase of life and you're just going through it. You're like having conversations with people you never would have just because you're curious. And I was like, dang, like that's for real. Like that's impactful. And that kind of made me feel like I need to keep going, right? Because I don't know where this is going to end. I don't know where I'm going to be in a year because it could be completely different. So,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
This just came to me. You've had 411 conversations about this.
Yeah. More in different ways, right? Like some people that are still competing, some former athletes about their experience, some people that are supporting athletes. But yeah.
Okay. And you're recording or transcribing these conversations?
No, on purpose, not.
Okay.
I've wanted the conversations to be from a place of curiosity and a place where people can feel like as raw, as vulnerable as they can.
Sure.
And don't want them to think that this is going to go anywhere else and they get reported on it.
Okay. Yeah. Because, dude, I think there's a beautiful conversation that makes for an amazing podcast. I'm having so much fucking fun with you right now on this, you know? And I'm like, oh my God, this is podcast worthy, bro. Like, I think this is the essence of that thing that you're kind of like stuttering the start on. You know what I mean? Just take that thing and just, I just outside looking in, do with it what you will. This is free advice and that's what it's worth. I think there's something there for you.
I appreciate that. That's why I'm here, honestly. Like, I want to figure out, like, if people like this stuff or if this is interesting enough to talk about. Like, I know there's enough people that have a conversation with this or could have a conversation about this. Yeah. And I'm getting more comfortable talking about it and talking about my story. And I'm finding people that are doing it more and more, too. Like, I know you mentioned you're going on another podcast soon. There's one, the Next Playbook, Derek Oleg, that's going on in a few months. That's all about this, just your transition. So yeah, integrating my way into those things for sure.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. One last thing. In your 411, and I'd be honored to be 412. In your 411 conversations about this transition of identity and this story that we either holds us back or that we leverage greatly. Is there any that stick out in your mind that are like, oh, if you had made the shift right there, you make a hard right instead of a hard left? Like, is there an interview that you've had where like that moment is so obvious?
I'm trying to think of it. Honestly, I don't think there's like anything that I have a better perspective on than somebody else's lived experience, right? Like someone making a left or right turn based on my lived experience and my interpretation of their actions might turn out completely different for them.
Sure.
Anyway. I think there's definitely examples where I was like, in my head, like, if only you thought this way, something different would happen. But I think that kind of limits what you learn from it, right? Like going back to the punch in the face example, right? I don't know why that sticks in my head. Like, punch in the face, you learn it more than watching a video on it. So I don't think so. I mean, I don't like, I think everybody lives the way they do and they learn the way they do, and
Mhm.
it happens, whatever, according to God's plan, kind of thing.
Yeah, dude, I admire, having been through the, you know, through research methods and stuff like that in grad school, and having engaged in the research process. I admire your mindset around the uniqueness of all 411 data points that you have to this point. There is something just beautiful is the only word I can come up with. There's something beautiful about your outlook, in that each one of those people were a unique circumstance, despite the commonalities and the trend lines and everything. And I really, as I now interview coaches and leaders, and I have these conversations more often, I think that's a superpower, brother. And if there's anything that I could bring to your consciousness, coach to coach, be aware of that and value that.
I appreciate that. No,
Yeah.
that's great. And you bring out more and more every time I talk with you about my own experience. It means you're a good coach. But I think it goes down to like the power structure, right? Like I've read more self-help books than the next person. And somebody's experience as an executive of a Fortune 500 company is different than my experience. Like I can do everything as closely related to their experience as I can, but it's going to turn out different because I'm a different human being with infinitely different thoughts and experiences that have happened to me. So there's no way to directly apply somebody else's lived experience to my experience. It's different, it's like, it's infinite.
Yeah. There's a lot of power, I think, from a divine channel of source, your perspective on the infinitely unique, that I would invite you to step into. It's really fucking cool, man.
I love it.
Where can the audience find you, brother? I've enjoyed. We could go on for hours.
Forever.
And dude, I'm telling you this right now, and I mean this wholeheartedly. I have a very short list of repeat guests, and you're on it, man.
Wow. Wow. I'm getting emotional. I love
Where can everybody find you, man?
You have a website, luboadvisory.com, Lubo. That's what everyone called me when I was a lacrosse player, Lubo.
There you go.
And I'm really active on LinkedIn. I started posting a lot of content and articles in conjunction, actually, with someone else I met at the Post, Stephen Bianco, and his company 42U. So I've been posting a lot of content more about the college athletic space, but really just identity development through sports. So I'm really active there, and I talked with as many people as I can there on LinkedIn. And then through my website, Lubo Advisory, I created this assessment tool, the Athlete Edge Alignment System, just to kind of get started with some of these deeper questions and the strengths and limitations of the things you learn through sport that I don't think a lot of people have reflected on, and released it just a few months ago at the new year. And it's been pretty impactful for some folks. So trying to get that out as much as possible.
I love it, man. Dude, all the best in taking that research to the finish line. I know that's a very daunting process and it's lengthy. Stay the course, man. Ed Lubowicki Performance Advisory, I really appreciate you. And for those of you that are on a mission to be the fittest leader possible, it comes down to integrity, courage, and ownership. And it's all laid on the foundation of alignment first. Till next time.